What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. We're taking another look at Monster Hunter Wilds here. Now, I did the claw as part of my all devices video a couple of days ago, but I wanted to get into it, do a little bit more, talk about why I wasn't really using XDSS and we need frame gen and all that kind of stuff, and more on the settings. So a little bit more time here to spend with the claw running in this game. It's still a mess, even though the claw does a decent enough job, at least trying, but we are going to have to wind up running this at 800p. I did show that in my past video. This is a really rough one to run. You're gonna have to use some upscaling as well, but it is what it is. We're uncapped, nothing else happening there. And then I have XCSS on right now. We'll be messing around with that a little bit, and we are going to use the low preset. Anytime I try to come up to medium or anything else, I really just run into more performance issues in a lot of areas of the game. And again, this defaults to FSR. We're going to use both in here because we are going to need frame gen, and with XDSS in this game we can't use the frame generation, and we don't have XDSS 2, so we'll take a look at those two things here. But XDSS bounce there, and then we have our low preset here. So yeah, that's what we're working with to get started here, and we'll take a look at how we're doing for performance with these settings as we get into it, into a few different areas. Now, most of the socially areas, the villages and stuff like that, where you're doing a lot of your crafting and there's more NPCs and everything, tend to have worse performance than a lot of other areas of the game. However, if there happens to be a lot of monsters and stuff around, it will dip as well, and you'll see that in a little bit. Now, that was for XCSS right there. Now, I swear in this game XCSS has some type of issue. We don't really see a lot of performance difference between FSR and XCSS, which usually I'll see a little bit more, even though balanced and balanced isn't apples to apples with these guys in base resolution. But FSR, for some reason, a lot of areas just seems to be looking a little bit better than XCSS in this game, which would definitely mean there's something a little bit off, because typically XCSS will look much better than FSR. The image quality will be better and hold a little bit better on the FPS side, which it might do here against FSR, but I just felt like something was off about the image quality. I don't know exactly what it is, but this game has all kinds of bugs and performance issues, so who knows, maybe there's some things that need to be fixed up on the XDSS side. But it doesn't really matter. We wind up having to stick with FSR anyways, and either way we're upscaling 800p, so even though it looks okay on the 8-inch screen, we're still dealing with that anyways at the end of the day. And because they really push you to use frame generation in this game to straighten out a lot of the existing problems, unfortunately, even though frame generation isn't recommended for games at really low FPS, it does kind of become something you need to do with all the handhelds, including the claw here. Another reason why we need to stick with FSR until we get XCSS 2, I hope, down the line for this game, and get Intel's frame gen, which I think would work great on this device. But until then, we really got to stick with FSR, use quality, bounce, and performance, whatever you're the most comfortable with. Each one will give you a few FPS though, and then you're going to have to probably kick on that frame gen and use that. It doesn't really hurt the input latency that much in this game, surprisingly, even though we're frame genning very low, a very low base frame rate. It actually feels better than a lot of other games where I've tried to do that before, so I will give it credit there, and that's probably somewhat on purpose because they do kind of push you to use it in this game, and they're kind of leaning on it right now to get it to run it all playable, not just on lower end hardware like these handhelds or like the claw, but even on more powerful desktops, you know, 4070s and 4060 Ti I have here and stuff like that. We have to do a lot of things to get this game to run it all decent. But you can see how it's doing here with frame gen on, fighting out in this area. That happens to be a tough area to run, and then we turn off frame gen and you can see the base FPS and what we're getting here in these areas for right now on Monster Hunter Wilds. It certainly isn't great, but for the most part, if you are willing to deal with frame gen, I think you can get through it all right here. Same thing on the Z1 Extreme devices. For the most part, those have stopped crashing on me, and they are pretty playable as long as you're using frame gen as well, and they work decent because they are FSR and AMD hardware. But I think you guys are probably getting the idea here, whether you're traversing around, whether you're in combat, or whether you're in one of the more social areas. Your base FPS is bouncing between 25 and 35, making your frame gen FPS bouncing you somewhere between typically 38 and 60, depending on where you're at. It all in all feels fine, but it certainly does need a lot more work, and I do hope we see a lot of patches and fixes to the game. And also XCSS 2 would be nice to see with Intel's frame gen, and whatever's going on with XCSS in this game, which I don't know, just kind of seems a little off to me, would be nice to see fixed up as well. But this is all launch performance on a game that we all know is having performance issues, so I do expect patches. I'll be covering those in the future. We'll look at the updates, we'll see how this turns out on this device and others that I test here in the future, because this is a big game, also one of my favorite games to play, and I'm really enjoying this game of the franchise, so I'll definitely be covering this a lot more in the future as we get patches and trying it on more and more devices. But anyways, guys, for now, I'm going to leave it there. That's a little bit more Monster Hunter Wilds here running on the MSI Claw 8. Still a rough experience, but if you're willing to deal with frame gen, FSR, and some upscaling to 800p, you can get away with it. All right, guys, as always, thanks a lot for coming and check out the video. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next one.